my name is Josh Barron. I'm the Senior Academic Technology Officer at Marist College. I've also been serving on the Apereo board and Sakai board before that, and been pretty active in the teaching and learning group off and on for a number of years. I have a couple of other folks and colleagues from the teaching and learning community that's going to provide some updates as well, but I'll have them introduce themselves as they come up. What I'm going to try to do, or what we thought we'd try to do in this session, is to provide a little bit of background and history for everybody. If you're not familiar with the group and some of the work we've done over the years, it's helped us set some context there. We'll then spend most of the kind of presentation time updating everybody about things that have been going on in the teaching and learning group over the last year. I'm really hoping to have at least 10, maybe 15 minutes at the end to talk about and discuss and hear from all of you what people might be interested in collaborating on and working on over the coming year. The group has tended to set goals for the conference every year, work on those, and then kind of come back and regroup at the conference. So, a little bit of background here, again, for those who may have not know much about the teaching and learning group. Oh, actually, I just did that part, right? So let's go forward here. So the group was formed in 2007. How many people were at the community gathering in 2007? Wow. That's cool. So we kind of, back then, Sakai had really just launched seriously a few years earlier. It was a fairly significant number of technical developer folks in the community. And there was a growing sense or feeling, at least I had that, of wanting to see a larger voice in the community of teaching and learning folks. Those could be faculty members, instructional designers, instructional technologists, academic technologists, and so forth. That's not to mean that the technical voice isn't critical as well, but to have a little bit more of a balance in the community. And so we got this gathering together at Newport Beach to really kind of form the group and kick things off and start working together around the world, really, in between conferences. I should mention, too, is Janice here? I didn't see her. So we've been very closely affiliated with and interacting with the portfolio group in the Sakai community throughout this whole time period as well. There's different goals and agendas sometimes in the group, but there's a lot of overlap and participation as well. And the last thing I like to note here just in general is that the group, the size, the focus, the work we've been doing ebbs and flows over time. There's been times when there's been 50 or 60 people in different groups working on it. There's been times when it's been more like 25 or so folks in the group. I emphasize that because I think sometimes people are hesitant because, like, well, I could get involved, but I might not have a lot of time, or I might be able to do this in the fall and then not have time in the spring. But don't worry about that. So if you want to just jump in on a couple of calls throughout the year, that's totally fine. If you want to participate at a higher level and do a lot of collaboration, that's great as well. So a quick rundown here, a couple of things that we've worked on over this time period in terms of the group. Some of these are still active projects, others have kind of gone off to the side for a bit. So one of the things we started with the teacher was the Sakai Innovation Award. This was an idea to try to highlight innovative pedagogical uses of Sakai in the classroom, not maybe the most technically advanced or sophisticated, but uses of Sakai that were really changing how students were learning. Salwa Khan is the chair of that committee this year. I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that project and where it is and some of the work that's going on or has gone on this year. We've done a series of teaching with Sakai webinars that launched maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And Wilma from Longsight has kind of restarted those this year, and she'll speak to that here in a few minutes. Learning design lenses, I'll have a slide here in a second just to explain that. At the point, the group has been working on support documentation for Sakai. There's another group in the Sakai community maybe you're familiar with that's been working in that area as well, but there's been a lot of overlap between the two at times. And an area that I actually personally would love to see a lot more happening around in the teaching and learning group and just Sakai in general is more student involvement. And as if anybody was in the OAE session earlier, we have 5 students from Marist College who's come here to the conference to present on some of the work they've been doing. And I think it's always really kind of an energy boost to the community to have actual real-life students here working with us and participating in the conference. So it'd be great to see more of that happen over time. So one last kind of history note here before I turn it over to Salwa. because it takes really a graphic here to explain the teaching or the learning design lens work that happened about 2010 or so. So the teaching and learning group was really interested in trying to define all the different capabilities in a very non-technical way that really needed to be present for kind of rich, innovative teaching and learning to happen with technology, particularly at the time we started this around the learning management system. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining this, but since the term comes up, I like to at least make sure people have a general sense of what this is all about. So you can see we had these 7 what we call design lenses in different categories, and then sub-lenses, we call them facets. There's a Confluence wiki page. If you don't know what that means, just raise your hand at some point. I'd be happy to explain any of these terms that we throw out. That goes into great detail on this and defines these different lenses and so forth. And ultimately, the idea was that as new tools and capabilities were being developed at Sakai, designers and developers could peer through the eyes of a teaching and learning person by peering through these lenses. So just a quick example, you might be working on an area like social interactions and communications, and someone might be designing a new discussion forum tool. But also then looking through the openness lens, realize that some people might want to open that discussion and not just have it private to a course or a group, but actually make it available for a larger group of people around the world to participate in. These then got incorporated into a lot of the open academic environment work. They've kind of sat out there for a while. It might be an area we want to return to at some point. You'll notice we label these version 1.0 intentionally, assuming we would make further releases of this. So let me pause there before I turn it over to Sal, see if there's any questions on this, the history and a quick overview of things. Okay, so let me turn it over to Sal, who's going to talk a little bit about the Teaching with Sakai Innovation Award from this year and hopefully recruit some of you guys to participate.
Hi everyone, my name is Salwa Khan, and I'm from Texas State University, where I work with faculty on mainly video and media type projects, but also with our version of Sakai, which is called Tracks. And I also teach as an adjunct every now and then. And for the past 2 years, I've been chairman of the Teaching with Sakai Innovation Award Committee. The committee consists of anywhere from 10 to, I believe this year we had 14 people on the committee. Some more involved than others. Actually, several of them are here today. They come from all different institutions. They're volunteers. We're all volunteers. As Josh said, if there are people here who would like to be on the committee, it's very interesting work, I think. You get to see a lot of what other schools are doing, innovative things that other schools are doing. Anyway, so if you're at all interested, I'm going to show you a Confluence page where you can go and get in touch with me if that's something that appeals. The committee, or rather the award, started, as Josh said, in 2007. The idea came about then. The first year we ran the competition was 2008. And we've been going ever since, so this is our 7th year. We get entries literally from all over the world, which is really neat, again, to see what people are doing elsewhere. The award focuses on the recognition of excellence in teaching and learning, and we have the 5 categories. Currently, we have those 5 categories that people can make their entries into. So here's a picture of our winners from last year. This is 2013. They came, actually in this case, they were all from outside the US. We had 3 people from Amsterdam and 1 from South Africa. In fact, she's right here. Cheryl. Okay. What I wanted to do was to show you the Apereo website. Well, but it's not showing up.
Over here. See, the last session, I was on a Mac and I didn't know what I was doing. Now it's payback. Oh no! There we go. So, video or?
Well, no, just kind of scroll through the page. Okay, so this is, as I say, on the Apereo site. And we have a page where you can see some of the winners from past years. We've had obviously over 7 years, many winners. Some of them are not here yet. We used to have another site where the Twizia project was hosted. That's kind of gone away at this point. We haven't moved everything over to the new site yet, but that's the process that's going to happen. But in the meantime, we have winners, I believe, from last year and from the year before that are profiled here on this page. And so if you're interested, you can go look at their videos. You can even read their project proposals. So you can learn a lot right there.
Use the down arrow to go up that.
Okay, so here are the winners, and as I say, you can view their PDF submissions. So you know, if you're interested to find out a little more about their projects. And then this goes back to the year before. All right, now I need to get back to my PowerPoint. Sorry about this. And I'm going to show you the Confluence page. So when I talk about Confluence, basically it's a wiki site that's used by the Sakai project, and different groups have their pages there in order to use it to collaborate on different projects. And so we have our Twizia, as we call it, Twizia page. And here, everything's out in the open here, so you can go through, you can read our committee meetings. We keep our committee notes in Etherpad, and so all our notes are available here. There's all kinds of information. We have the forms. Actually, the forms this year were streamlined. We had a form that we've been using for quite a while and thought it needed a little updating, and that's what we did, streamlined it a bit. We also have a list here. Oops. I sped through that. List of the committee. And this is what the page that I'm suggesting you go to if you're interested in joining the group. You can find my email there, which is right there, sk16@txstate.edu. And so if you're interested, please email me, and I will definitely get in touch with you and get you on board with the group. Does anyone have any questions about the committee, the award?
Anybody want to volunteer now?
Yeah. Any volunteers? We're always looking for volunteers. You know, we'd love to have more faculty members. But anyone else as well is welcome. One other thing I should say is that we wanted to thank our sponsor, ANI, which has sponsored, that's AsahiNet, which has sponsored the award for the last 2 years, which we're very grateful. And once again, if anybody has any interest, please join.
Hey, could I also want to thank Zawa for providing leadership of the committee for the last 2 years. It's both a lot of fun, and she said I think you learned a lot. It is some work, so I really appreciate it. Just want to thank you, Zawa.
And at least once I know that we had faculty members at an institution watch award winners from a prior year, which gave them an idea, which then they implemented and won an award the following year. So that's something you might want to consider. So next year, Woman, you want to come up and talk a little bit about the showcase? Let me see if I can.
Hi everybody, my name is Wilma Hodges and I'm the Director of Training and E-Learning Initiatives at Alongside. So as Josh mentioned earlier, a couple of 3 years ago there was the Teaching with Sakai webinar series, which were great, but they kind of stopped after a little while because nobody was sort of coordinating them on a continual basis. So one of the things that I wanted to do is to revitalize that a little bit and get the webinars going again. Because there's such a richness of experience and innovative things that people are doing in the community.
Can you speak into the microphone more?
I'm sorry.
There, better.
Better? Okay. Such a richness in the community of innovative practices that people are doing, and a lot of times people can't make it to events like this one. So it's nice to have another resource out there for folks that they can go to, either to the live presentation or we're recording all the sessions. So they're available on YouTube as well. And basically, I'm running them once a month, January through October, because November and December we kind of get into the holiday season. It's hard to find presenters. So we have available recordings on YouTube, and you see the address there. And then we also have on the Alongside website under News and Events. If you go there, there's information on previous webinars and also the upcoming ones. So let me just show you. These are the ones that we've offered so far. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to attend some of these. So I hope you enjoyed them, if you did attend them. But we've had some great speakers. They've been really good turnout, especially the MOOC one. We had a really large turnout for that. It was a MOOC turnout. That's what I got here. But these are the ones we've offered so far. And then we do have a couple more. Oops. How did I get in there? Space. There we go. The next one is going to be Dr. Chuck Severance. He's going to talk about the future of Sakai, so I hope you guys will join us for that. That's going to be in June 25th. And then in July, Neil Caden is going to talk a little about the release cycle and the QA process. So those are the two that I've got confirmed lined up, and then I have a few tentative folks that I haven't had confirmation yet, so I'm not publicizing. But I am very interested in booking out the remaining 3 months of this year and also going into next year. I'd like to keep it going. Oops. Not used to your laptop here. So anyway, for 2015, maybe you. If anybody wants to volunteer, or you know someone who's doing something really cool that you'd like to share with the community, I'd be thrilled to talk with you. So please feel free to contact me. And let me know if you're interested. Any questions? Oh, all right.
So yeah, thanks again, Wilma. I was really excited when you stepped forward this year and agreed to get these going again. I think it was a great resource. And I also think both for the awards program and the webinar series is a great example of commercial affiliates and communities supporting innovation and helping drive innovation and teaching development. That's great to see that kind of thing happening. I'm going to skip over this to some large extent because there's going to be a session tomorrow on this in more detail. But well, I should say, I'm going to wrap up here by just talking about two other initiatives that or areas that have been focused on this year. In our calls and discussions. So one of them is around this next generation learning management system visioning activity. We started this just a few months ago, so it's really just been a lot of general discussion about this, thinking about where is the learning management system going in the future? Is it going to remain the same for the next 5, 10, 15 years that it has for the last 5 or 10 or 15 years? And so I think it's been a really interesting discussion. It's just a discussion at this point. But if you'd like to hear more about what kind of
topics are coming out from that and discuss it a bit. Chuck Severance and I are going to be presenting on this, myself from a teaching and learning perspective, him from an innovation technology perspective tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So the last thing I want to talk about is what the group really focused on rather significantly this past year. I shouldn't say the group, because there's the Teacher Sakai Awards and webinar group to focus on that. But a lot of us got together and started talking about, and actually began last year at the Apereo conference, how could we, as a teaching and learning community, begin to create like a feedback loop back into the development process so that we could really begin to recommend enhancements, improvements, new innovations and tools and capabilities. So I want to take a few minutes, and hopefully I'll do this rather quickly, to give you some background on what we tried. Some things worked, some didn't. But I'm actually really excited about where we are right now, because we're about to launch a kind of renovation and innovation project around the lessons or lesson builder tool. And I'll talk a little bit about that in more detail as I go through here. So the first thing that we started to do is just try to think about how could we begin to organize ourselves, in a sense, in terms of collecting recommendations for enhancements and feed those off to other communities or groups within the community, such as the PMC, the Product Management Counselor, as well as individual developers working on tools. And so I am going to skip over a lot of ideas that we didn't think were very good, but if you're interested in seeing our thinking and the whole process, was a lot of phone calls and documentation of the wiki. A little hard to see, but there's a link here to the wiki page where you can go read about that. I will make all these slides available so you can go and take a closer look at what we did. But ultimately, we came up with what we were starting to call a teaching and learning capability review process. And very at a high level, there was kind of startup and then 3 kind of phases to it. The first phase was to really, the startup phase, was kind of identify a particular tool capability in Sakai that we thought could benefit from some enhancements. And then just engage with the developer community or individual developers working on that tool to say, hey, look, we think we have some ideas. Would you be interested in us providing those ideas and things of that nature? And then move into, assuming that there was support and interest for us to do that, move into kind of a really just brainstorming activity. Let's list out and think about all the different things that we might be able to do to improve or enhance tool capability. And then after we did that and documented those ideas, we really see, you see there's 2 of these community check-ins. We want to make sure this is done in a transparent process, get a lot of community input, surface ideas, even bad ones early, so people can say, hey, that's a bad idea, you shouldn't do that. So have that kind of check-in period. Then move on to another phase that would be around user research and usability testing, to really go and speak to our faculty and our students at all of our campuses, so we get a diverse kind of input from users about what kind of capability enhancements do you think are important, what kind of usability improvements might be important. Again, then do a community check-in kind of activity to see if others in the community have any concerns, and then wrap this up in a sense with releasing a kind of review report that would go out and kind of document what we thought collectively as a teaching and learning community were going to be, really significant enhancements to a tool or capability. And you'll see that last part, seek funding, was extremely important. We heard a lot from the developer community about what we started to call, they referred to as unfunded mandates. So they have a bunch of really great, awesome ideas come out of a teaching and learning group and land in the lap of what really amassed off in a lot of volunteers and developers who have a lot of other work and say, hey, we have a bunch of great ideas. When are you going to get around to working on all those? Wasn't totally fair. And I totally agree with that. So the other thing, too, is to create this report and then take on some responsibility as folks who want to see these enhancements of going out and actually seeking some funding and resources to help get this work done, which is a challenging thing, but I think a critical part to having this kind of process be successful. So that was the framework and the process that we came up with, and then it was time for us to kind of figure out, okay, how can we actually pick a real tool and capability to actually do this? And as we began to talk about that, it surfaced pretty quickly that lessons, also previously referred to as Lesson Builder, was kind of a relatively new tool, getting a lot of attention. See Charles Hedrick here from Rutgers over there, who's the lead developer of the tool. And so we started talking with him about, hey, would you be open to us working on this and doing some enhancements? He was very positive about doing that. And also we talked about the importance of the history of the unfunded mandate. You need to make sure there was going to be funding and resources that came along with some of that. We also spoke and engaged a lot with the TCC, now the PMC. As you may recall, if you're here at this session last year, we had a large number of those folks, I see some of them here in the room as well, participate. So it was really great to see a dialogue starting between the teaching and learning group and the PMC in a way that I don't know had happened too much in the past. So once we'd done that kind of startup phase I mentioned earlier, checked in with the developer community, we then began that first phase of, okay, let's just do some brainstorming and begin to document the ideas that we thought might be enhancements to the tool. And we began to do that in a Google spreadsheet, which I will attempt to bring up here. This is tricky. Even trickier with them. So we ended up documenting about 35 initial brainstorming activities. You can see that we documented these as kind of non-technical things. So we were trying to focus on user needs and user scenarios to describe exactly kind of what the need was and what it would look like to an actual faculty member or student. And I'll scroll over here. You can see we had lots of other columns that we were using here. I'll go up a little bit, where we were linking back to things like the learning design lenses, taking lots of notes, kind of a voting process we experimented with. Ultimately, we decided this didn't work so well. It was getting complicated. It was getting very time-consuming. And I will admit I was one person who really pushed for the spreadsheet. Others said it was a bad idea, and they were probably right. So we kind of took a step back from that. Let's see if I can go back here. So we kind of took a step back from that. Let's see, I've covered some of these already. And I think two of the things that surfaced as we started to kind of debrief about this and what was working, wasn't working, one was that a lot of the things that were surfacing were around user interface improvements in the lessons tool. That seemed to be a really area of focus for folks. And also a realization that because of that, because of some of the user interface complexity, that if we added more capabilities to an already complex user interface, we might actually cause more challenges for people using the tool. At the same time, we realized that we really needed somebody with some UX, user experience design capabilities and experience to work with us, because that wasn't something that was kind of naturally part of the group in terms of expertise and knowledge. So being able to take things like user stories and convert that into a wireframe and then develop the UI and then work with Charles Hedrick to implement that, we were missing this critical resource to get that done. So that ultimately drove us towards what we're now calling the Lessons Enhancement Project. And the idea was to kind of slim down the project and focus it really on the user interface for lessons, for Lesson Builder. And this also came from conversations with Charles, where he also surfaced, without us even bringing it up, that his major interest was redesigning the user experience and the user interface. So we held kind of a special meeting in March 2014. Some of you may have been on that call, and that's where some of these kind of decisions came from. So let's wrap up here with the last part of this, which is, since then, we've now engaged with Sam Peck, who has been a UX designer in the Sakai community, in the open academic community for a number of years, so he knows the systems, technology, and the groups, I think, pretty well. He's actually been nice enough to scope out the project with us in terms of giving us cost estimates and time and effort kind of timelines. And so right now, it looks to him like to do this major redesign of the user experience lesson. It's going to cost about $25,000 US. We also think we're probably going to need some project management and some developer, UI developer time, and just to kind of create a little bit of extra budget, buffer in the budget there. We're looking for around $35,000 for this lessons enhancement project. If we can get that in the next couple of months, we should be able to complete this work and have it be incorporated into the Sakai 11 release, which would be really great. And I didn't make it a hyperlink, so let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. Because just like last night, or the night before, I created a wiki page here. Oops. Sorry. With a lot more details. It looks like it might be a little cut off here. So the background is up there. We also have a very high-level proposal. So if you want to get a better sense, and I've explained here about what this is about, you can go take a look at it. And if anybody's interested, actually I think it's linked somewhere. Yep, here it is a report from Sam Peck. If you'd like to see what he's done in terms of suggesting an approach, timeline, and so forth. The only thing that's not in here is I did include some of the specifics in the budget, because that has to do with rates and things like that, which is a little bit private. But if you want, you can go see, take a look at the types of things that he's recommended and how he would approach this with us. So right now, Marist College is ready to contribute, between $5,000 and $10,000 to this project. We're actively looking for 5 or 6 other partner institutions to put some funds in to make this a reality. Once we identify those institutions, we will talk a little bit about those involved, how to best kind of organize ourselves and govern some of the work. We're leaving that after we've identified that. There's 3 or 4 institutions that seem pretty serious, but nobody's ready for me to publicly name anybody at this moment. So if you're an institution, you're using, how many people are using the lessons tool? How many people want to put $5,000 in? Halfway. Is that 2,500? I could do an auction. 1,000 and 1,500. But a little bit fun. So, but on a serious note, I think that not only does this, I think, represent an opportunity to take a tool that I think a lot of institutions from the hands that came up see this tool as being really critical, a very valuable tool to enhancing and innovating teaching and learning institutions. So it's not just an opportunity to make that tool really easy for instructors to use, which I think would be really significant. I think if we can do this, it would be the first time I'm aware of that the teaching and learning group has organized something like this, gotten it funded, and then worked with developers to implement it. And I think that in itself would be something that if we could repeat that over and over again, it would be very significant in the future of Sakai releases. So if you don't want to mention anything now, you got questions, my email address is on the wiki page and so forth, or just come up at some point during the conference and talk to me. I'd love to take your money.
12 minutes, John.
Thanks a lot. 1 minute to the discussion. I'm nervous at 1 minute before you're totally done. So very last thing here then, good timing, is for those who are really new, I want to make sure, and again, I'll put these slides up so you don't have to write these long URLs down. There's kind of 3 things you need to know about if you want to start getting involved in any of the teaching and learning activities that we've been talking about. The bottom, actually, I should have put the last link there first, is a link to the teaching and learning wiki page that's off the Sakai Confluence wiki. And so that has a lot of background information. It has information on the various activities that are going on and so forth. If you want to just stay in touch and know what's happening in the teaching and learning community, then the first 2 links are probably the most significant, because we use what we historically called the pedagogy mailing list, to update the community, and also just make sure announce phone calls we're doing. Generally, we've been doing weekly phone calls. If we get the lessons project going, we'll probably move to a more agile process of talking maybe once a month on that particular project. But if you just want to make sure you know what's happening in the teaching and learning community in general, that's probably the best list to monitor. The second link there is where you can subscribe to that list. So I did want to leave some time here for some questions, but also discussions. But I threw these up as potential discussion points. But let me end here and see if people have questions, comments, want to talk about things you're interested in working on next year. Yes?
We are working now at our institution on enhancements to the lesson plan. Do we need to talk to you about that?
Yeah, really great question. So if you didn't hear it, the question was if you're already working on enhancements to the lessons tool, how, what's the right step? Do you want to start getting involved? How do you contribute and so forth? And you're certainly not alone, because I don't see Jeff here.
In general, people who are expecting to get code in the tool should talk to me.
Right, so very good question. Are these code enhancements, things you're...
We're trying to build the export to HTML5 and convert it to EPUB and Word.
So Charles can raise his hand.
I didn't hear.
They're working on exporting stuff to HTML5 for EPUB kind of publishing.
Okay.
So Charles Hedrick at Rutgers would be the person to speak with.
Right.
And I think coordinating closely with Charles on this stuff seems important from our interactions, because without that, you might do something awesome, but it may not fit so well in his architecture, and obviously that could be a problem. If you're also working on user interface improvements, and I know I was looking for Jeff from NYU, because I know NYU is doing some of that work. It would be great to hear from you on the list, or just email me. And I think what we'll end up doing is, if we get funding for this, we want to make this a community effort, not something closed among funders. So we want to coordinate with any other institution that was already doing work. So probably the quickest thing is, if you're doing work with lessons on the UI side, shoot me an email, let me know, and we can talk about next steps. Other questions? Yes.
Is there any institutional affiliation fee to this group?
It's $30,000 in cash to me. No, this is a totally public, open group. It's a good question. Yeah, so it's a completely open group. There's no fee to get involved whatsoever, and I think it really is about people who share common challenges in teaching and learning, realizing that there's value in getting together and working together. There is investment in time and effort. That's the only thing you really need to put in. But having done that for many years now, I can say the return on that investment for me personally at Meredith College has been extremely significant. So, yeah.
I think one of the things that the group might consider doing is trying to provide some sort of clearinghouse for information on best practices that people have developed. A few of us are working on a sort of a grassroots effort to collect user stories. So we have a section later in the conference, and so we'd like to get people to contribute stories to that. But I think there are articles, there's research that's been done, or simply blog posts that here are some great ideas. Absolutely, that'd be a nice thing to sort of gather together.
I totally agree. In fact, I think there's been some efforts along those lines. They haven't sustained themselves. So Saul and I didn't mention this site called openedpractices.org that we launched along with the Teaching with Sakai Innovation Award back in 2007. And it very much was the idea that any application that came in, not just the winners, but anybody submitted an application would be asked, would they be okay putting this out on Creative Commons? And we would grow this database of examples of innovative uses. Now, for a whole range of reasons, it didn't work out as well as we'd hoped. But it'd be great to restart that kind of thing, so as if you already are. I think it connects into what Wilma's been doing too, in terms of these webinars that create video documentaries of those as well. So I'll certainly try to get that session, but you should post to the list your ideas, and I'm sure we'll all react to them. other comments?
I was wondering if, one of the things that typically happen with a lot of tools is, a lot of times it's more piecemeal suggestions for improvements to go through the JIRA.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you have suggestions, checkout suggestions for considering that you've done a lot of this work, to gather all these enhancements, whether people should be submitting lesson builder enhancements, or if that's kind of like, that's something else should go on now for that work.
Well, I mean, in general, when I've known that people were working on something, I've worked with them and taken the code back. There's several examples. There's some minor ones. The most major is probably Project Tie, which is the /direct, interface into. I'll have to say that most of the time I have to significantly rewrite the code. That's okay, I guess. I mean, it might be nice to talk to people while they're writing it and give them some pointers. But yes, I'd look if anything is going to be generally of value to the community, I'd like to take it back.
Yeah, and I just emphasize there too the surfacing
the way to do that is probably to create a JIRA.
Right. And to do that early. So I think one of the challenges that's come up is that by the time Charles or Chuck is hearing about or seeing code that's already been written, it's a little bit too late. So the more people surface these things early, I'm going to start writing this in the next few months. I think that would be helpful.
I was actually more specifically thinking of just, from an end user standpoint, just different enhancement requests that you might have that you might also submit through a JIRA. That also.
Well, I generally have responded to enhancement requests. I'm not currently responding to requests for UI changes because, as he commented, I think adding more stuff to the existing UI is in some ways going to make things worse. So as long as it looks like the enhancement project is likely to happen, I'm tending to say I won't accept those kinds of requests. Other than that, it's a matter of how much time is available.
I will say that, I'll get you in one second, but I will say that Neil Caden, who I don't think is here right now, probably doing the session, has been talking a lot about, he's been on the calls and talking about using JIRA, and he actually did a session on use of JIRA and stuff like that. I think we probably need to get a little further in this project idea. I do think that some of the work we need to do might need a bit more of a focused, sustained effort rather than someone putting a JIRA in about a UI improvement rather than a more comprehensive assessment.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
There are certainly times when, fairly straightforward change can be really useful.
Sure.
And I'm always happy to do that. There have been a number of requests like that I've taken. It's come to a limit of the ability of the existing UI.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, talking with Charles as well, felt that we needed this coordinated, comprehensive, cohesive effort rather than individual JIRAs going in on it. One more question, probably. Suresh, did you?
So just to add a couple of points. One was the design lenses that you talked about earlier, and then the point that Jim is making here, I think there's some correlation to that. The way I think about is that, one of the things that could potentially be beneficial is to build a process map and the number of clicks that it takes for you to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. And if you draw down the process maps and you start putting metric around it, what will happen, I think, is even from a development architecture perspective, as we start removing the number of clicks necessary to accomplish the processes, it will become easier. And also, some of the things, even from a presentation perspective, if you go to the UI tool, it's all about tools. I think the paradigm has to change from a UI perspective, where we are talking about processes that the teaching and learning community is using as opposed to talking about tools. So if we start putting the steps in that the way the teaching community uses, eventually I think the traction that is kind of lost to the UI. It's not about whether we have to create JavaScript or animation and all this fancy stuff. That's not about what people are doing. It's an easy way of. One main thing I was thinking was, if I'm a teacher for the first time I'm coming and I'm able to create a course feel like, a couple of things that the course is ready. Maybe it is not fully functional, very complicated course, but it's functional. So just to take the point back to where I was, we should be building a process.
Right, and I totally agree that I think that's one of the reasons why we engaged Sam Peck, who has deep expertise in this kind of work, so we could take some of the user stories and the things that we identify as issues and turn them into what you're describing and use his really expert eyes in terms of user design to work on it. But I'm at the end of time. My time is ended. And I do just want to flash up this last slide, because one of the things I always like to try to do is have something super concrete for next week that you can do, which is jump on our call, which right now is Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. I do recognize that this time is probably not, I know it's not ideal for all places around the world. We're always open to adjusting the time, and if you're in a time zone that this doesn't work, let me know. We'll work on finding maybe a time that would work better. But hopefully I'll see everybody or hear everybody next Wednesday. First to the call, and the link down there leads you to the call-in information. So thanks a lot. I appreciate everybody coming out. It's a great sized group, and have a great time.